Welcome to the Midwife Pip podcast. Today we are diving into one of the biggest surprises for all new parents, newborn sleep.
The main reason that people don't have as much confidence and ease and more anxiety and dread is the fear of the narrative that they're going to create bad habits. But the overall headline is the fourth trimester is absolutely not the time to worry about that. And anyway,
now, many of us go into parenthood expecting our baby to sleep for long stretches, settle in their cot, and gradually fall into some kind of predictable routine. But for many families, the reality looks very different. Frequent wakings, contact naps, feeling to sleep, day and night confusion, and the feeling that your baby only wants to sleep on you can leave you wondering whether you're maybe doing something wrong.
And if you have one bad nap or a week of poor sleep, no big deal. That's just a bit of overtiredness. But we're talking about sort of perpetual months, weeks, years, overtiredness. That absolutely does create emotional dysregulation.
The truth is, the first 3 months of life, often referred to as the fourth trimester, are a really unique period of adjustment for babies and parents alike. And understanding what's biologically normal can make a huge difference to your confidence, your expectations, and your well-being. So to help us unpack what new baby sleep really looks like.
So much of what we teach on our programme and with Lucy, who's our feeding expert, is about confidence in feeding and also obviously being able to keep as many feeds as you want in, but saying, breastfed babies could go through the night with a dream feed or with no feeds. And
I'm joined by the wonderful Eve and Jem from Calm and Bright Sleep Support. Together, we'll be exploring what's normal, what's not, how parents can navigate sleep deprivation, and why sometimes lowering our expectations can be the key to enjoying those early weeks. And let's get started. Guys, welcome and thank you so much for joining me, because I know you're busy both supporting thousands of families navigating sleep, which in a heat wave I can imagine is no small feat.
Busy.
And also you've got so many little people between you as well. So thank you for letting us steal your expertise.
No, thank you for having us. We love speaking to you, Pip. We always do. So we're really looking forward to it, honestly.
Oh, I'm so excited. It feels like I'm just having a little catch up with friends.
Yes,
I love
exactly.
it. I love it.
Really
now,
is.
I mentioned a term that I know may not be understood by everybody. And I think for anyone hearing it for the first time, would you mind just explaining to us what the fourth trimester rather, we all know about the first trimester, what the fourth trimester actually is and why in relation to sleep, it's such an important kind of concept to understand and get our heads around?
Yeah, I'm so glad that we are recognizing the fourth trimester as the fourth trimester, because I describe it as an extension of the umbilical cord. If you think of it like that, and we think of the first, second, and third trimesters as really important, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, and the different stages that we go through with labor and preparing for birth. And the fourth trimester is an extension of the umbilical cord in terms of attachment, but also physically, from an attachment point of view, babies have been in the womb. This is new to them, this new world. It's also new for them. And for us, as mothers, we're navigating matrescence and these huge hormone dips. So physically, we're healing from birth, but emotionally, we've become parents. And even if you have 1 or 5, you become a new mother every time you have a baby. So this acknowledgement of the fourth trimester is so important, because we can recognize it as space to get to know your baby, heal, and just not to worry about bad habits, because this is a trimester. It's a period of time where it's very normal for it to be a period of adjustment and transition.
Yeah, and I think the reason why we refer to it as the fourth trimester is because in the first 3 trimesters, things happen on demand, as Jem said, via the umbilical cord. So food is delivered on demand and cuddles and motion and white noise through the whoosh of the blood through the umbilical cord. And so the reason why we refer to it as a fourth trimester is, as Jem says, is an extension of that, so that food is delivered, comfort is delivered, warmth, etc., is delivered on demand without question or hesitation. And Pip, I think that the main reason that people don't have as much confidence and ease and more anxiety and dread is the fear of the narrative that they're going to create bad habits. But the overall headline is the fourth trimester is absolutely not the time to worry about that. And anyway, After that, there's no such thing as bad habits, only ones that don't work very well for you or your baby. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's where the
exactly.
worry comes in.
That's
Yeah.
so reassuring, Eve, because you're so right. I think we've all heard, haven't we, those terrifying stories of the 6-year-old that
Yes.
still won't sleep at
Yep.
night and parents that are still up for like years and years down the line. I think we kind of accept the fact that it's going to happen in the initial period, but
Yeah.
there's this worry, isn't there, that if we don't do this initial period in a certain
Mm,
way, then we are setting ourselves up for that
Yeah.
really difficult long-term
yeah.
sleep journey. So I love that idea of
Yeah.
there is no such thing as a bad
Yeah.
habit for your
No, there
baby
really
sleep in this
isn't. I
period.
remember one of my very best friends contacting me because I was a sleep consultant when she had her baby, and he
Mm.
was 3 weeks old. She said, Eve, I don't know what to do. He won't be put down. What do I do? And I said, don't put him down.
Yeah, just don't.
Love that.
I got goosebumps when I said that because that's not how things happen. In fact, as Jem so beautifully explains so often, the more attached and close and confident and
Mm.
secure your baby is in the fourth trimester, the more likely they are to be a better sleeper. If we do the pushing away and the instilling routine too early, it can actually be counterproductive to sleep.
Yeah. I love that you said that, Eve, because I think a lot of this is down to modern parenting and mothers maybe going back to work and
Yeah.
societal norms and pressures and what your mother-in-laws did and what your friends did. And it's this pressure, oh, I must get into a routine. But also, from an exhaustion point of view, because you are navigating extreme levels of exhaustion, that can take some personality types, and this is true of mothers and fathers, into organized mode. Right, I need to do this, I need to do this as a way
Yes.
of coping. So I think, yes, there's biology and there's evolution, and we know why babies wake through the night. The science is there. They're not babies aren't even born with melatonin. But I think in terms of modern parenting, I think there's a lot of pressure on parents to get into routine. And exactly as you said, Eve, it can feel really, it can be counterproductive, but it can also be really counterintuitive. It can feel wrong to do it. The amount of messages that we get every single week of parents saying, oh, should I be rocking them? And I'm like, how old's your baby? And they're like 8 weeks. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Because I think it's that pressure and all of the misinformation out there too.
So true. And if I take myself back, obviously now I know you guys, so I'm okay. But if I take myself back to when I had my first, so almost 5 years ago, I knew nothing about sleep, like
Mm,
absolutely nothing, because honestly, I hadn't even thought of it. Like, I'd not even,
yeah.
and I know that probably sounds crazy to people, like you're a midwife, why don't you even think about, I knew safe sleep, like I
Yeah.
knew the
Yeah.
safe sleep
Yeah.
guidelines. So I had, what we were going to do with all of that and our new nice flat
Mm,
mattress and things like that.
mm,
But I had no idea about anything other than how to
yeah.
do safe sleep. And oh my goodness, was that humbling? Was that shocking? And
What?
I remember so vividly actually my husband having a conversation with you guys when we were like, okay, let's go for another baby. And I remember him being like, we have to do sleep differently. And I remember him having that conversation with you guys about like, how can we just know what's to be expected and what we can do to
Yeah.
support that journey rather than just
Yeah.
being so blind to it. And I
Yeah.
remember one time with our first, poor child, looking back now, that we just kept him awake for hours and hours because we thought, well, if I was sleeping all day, then of course I wouldn't sleep all night. So why would he?
Yeah.
And that just made sense in my brain that didn't
Yeah.
understand baby sleep at all.
Yeah.
And I wonder what, because you guys have supported so many families through sleep and do such phenomenal life-changing work. Like, let's call it what it is, because sleep deprivation is torture. Um, and I wonder what some of the big kind of misconceptions that you've heard on the journey, because surely I'm not the only one that thought that. Please tell me I'm not.
That's actually one of the main ones, Pip, is that you need to keep them awake for them to sleep better. And it
Mm,
makes full sense. Like your logic was actually perfectly on point. We sleep better when we're tired. But despite the narrative suggesting the contrary at the moment, which is that
Mm.
overtiredness isn't a thing, it absolutely is a thing.
Yeah.
Now, it's not
mm,
something to worry about or panic about. And if you have one bad nap or a week of poor sleep, no big deal. That's just a bit of overtiredness. But we're talking about sort of perpetual months, weeks, years overtiredness. That absolutely does create emotional
mm,
dysregulation. Oh gosh, the ability to settle peacefully and stay asleep and wake after a good hour, which for us is 6 a.m. and not before, onwards, ideally. Anything else is a night wake. But what I would say is the actual fact of the matter is that whilst of course there are moments throughout our child's first 3 years where we absolutely must limit and to an extent manipulate sleep if we want bedtime, the night and the morning to be good,
Hmm.
vast majority of the time, what we find, and part of the reason why I started doing this, was that the information is very, very misleading in our opinion with the nap gap. So much longer awake,
Mm.
much shorter sleep, disturbing them from sleep quite a lot of the time, which in our approach, I'd say a good 80 to 90% of the time we don't disturb them. And controversially,
Mm.
we allow, as you have yourself know, up to 2.5 to 3 hours of napping and still
Mm.
expect for a good 10 to 12 hours overnight. So I'd say the biggest
Mm.
misconception is that. And the other one I just want to steal before I let Jem say her no doubt brilliant options is that breastfed babies are supposed to and expected to sleep less well than formula fed babies. Now,
Mm.
they absolutely do often sleep less well, but it's not for the reason that we think. So
Hmm.
we think that it's to do with the content of the milk, because, formula is perhaps more filling, or maybe when they're on solids, it's more filling.
Mm.
Mm.
The actual truth of the matter is that the only reason that breastfed babies can not sleep as well, all of mine did, by the way, so absolutely possible, is that we don't have the confidence that we have when we're formula feeding. Now, let me explain. If
Mm.
a formula fed baby who's had an 8 ounce bottle wakes up after 45 minutes, 2 hours, we are not going to offer another 8 ounce bottle because that would be overfeeding. And we know that they're full because we have seen it
Mm.
go in. When
Mm.
a breastfed baby wakes after an hour, because yes, we have the evidence of them putting on weight and soiled nappies, but we don't have the same level of
Mm.
immediate evidence of that bottle going down and seeing it go
Mm.
in. We then go, could they be hungry? The doubt comes in, our
Mm.
maternal doubt and worry, validly so, about wanting to provide, keep alive. That's, that is their
Yeah.
sustenance. So we feed. And then what we do
Yeah.
is we inadvertently give the message that you need to feed before sleep, you need to feed after sleep, you
Mm.
need to feed in
Yeah.
between. And
Yeah.
feeding is wonderful and gives so much amazing benefit further to nutrition. But
Hmm.
that is the reason why. It's the doubt that we have about how much they're getting. Whereas
Mm.
if
Love
we can take
that.
a step back and say, have they stayed on a similar percentile? Are they wetting their nappies? Do they look like the Michelin Man? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm probably too old for that reference for your listeners, but with tires and tires of rolls of fat. And if
Mm.
so, then you can have that confidence, and that's one of the ways in which we support parents. So
Mm.
I'd say that breastfed babies sleep less well than formula fed babies. They don't have to. Is
Yeah.
Eve,
I
that's
love
such a
that you've
light
said
bulb
that.
moment. That's so
Yeah.
interesting because I obviously in my line of work with regards to the birth space, speak to
Yeah.
women all the time about how we've so much doubted our body's ability to do
oh,
so many things as women, like
I
so many things,
know.
haven't we? And I think I always say we doubt our body's ability to birth because we don't have that knowledge and understanding. We then doubt
Yeah.
our body's ability to successfully breastfeed because we don't have that knowledge and understanding. And then this
Yeah.
is the continuum of that in that we doubt our ability to support sleep
Yeah.
because again we feel like our body isn't doing what it might do if we poured it from
yeah.
a bottle. And so interesting, I just
Yeah.
hadn't put those pieces together before. That was
Yeah.
such a light bulb moment of
Good. I hope it helps at least one
yeah,
It
person.
really
makes so
is.
much
And that
sense.
goes back to, again, like so much of what we teach on our program and with Lucy, who's our feeding expert, is about confidence in feeding and
Mm,
also obviously being able to keep as many feeds as you want in, but saying,
yeah.
breastfed babies could go through the night with a dream feed or with no feeds. And I think it's confidence. And, I've got 4 children and breastfed all of them. And with my fourth baby, I had advice because she was, her birth weight wasn't low, but she dropped more than 10%, and the health visitors were advising me to supplement formula, and I did, and then I got to a place where I undid that mainly because I was just so determined to breastfeed like I had
Yeah.
with the boys. So I had to almost not follow advice, and I'm not for a second saying to people listening not to follow advice, but my gut was that she was getting enough. She was just, she was 6 pounds 3, and she was just ticking along, and she was tiny, and she was one of a twin. So my gut was to keep going, and I did. But I can totally understand as a mum of 4, my fourth baby, having breastfed 4 babies, why some first-time mums or even fourth-time mums like me would have then gone down the formula route. Again, nothing against formula, but I'm like, I wanted to breastfeed, and I was being told that she wasn't getting enough, and she
Yeah.
was, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's again that doubt in our bodies. My goodness, like
Mm.
we are so amazing as
Amazing.
women.
Yeah.
We need to have that confidence. And I think understanding that, that initial acute fourth trimester, that sleep
Mm.
period, like, you guys said so beautifully, there is no such thing as a bad habit.
No.
Feeding to sleep is a beautiful skill. And
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
babies are meant tucked awake overnight, like that protects them against those deep sleeps that can lead to sudden infant death syndrome, don't they? Like it's literally clever that they are waking up
they're
overnight.
programmed to sleep lightly, like biologically. It's literally what they were made to do. So to go against that is so counterintuitive and so counterproductive in terms of the early parenting weeks.
It's something that Eve, you said this to me, and it might have been on the first ever podcast that you guys came on here, which was like episode 94 or something like that.
Wow.
And this has stuck with me. So I think at that stage, I want to say I was pregnant with my first when we recorded that episode, but it stayed with me. And you said to me that newborn sleep was like, and I'm not going to quote you quote unquote here because my memory's not that good. Forgive me.
Okay, it's okay.
But it was something about you're navigating through the ocean and you can either try and swim against the riptide of what is this normal chaos at that stage, or you can fall back into it and you're going to get to the shore at the same time. But how exhausted you are by the end is the thing that looks different. And that's literally stayed with me through all of the, you know, whether they're a bit poorly or the heat wave that we've had and everything's disturbed. Like this is that chaos in the ocean and how we approach that. And I think understanding like that knowledge about what is normal is what we're so missing, because then we don't know whether it's something to swim against or relax into.
Yes, no, that's so true. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What I say is that, you know, if you swim against the riptide, against the difficulty, and you're battling it, then you will tire yourself out and ultimately drown. And you can use that symbolically. Whereas if you allow it to take you a little further down and go with it a little bit, you'll get back to shore without so much exertion and difficulty, and your legs won't be as wobbly when you finally get back to the safe ground. But I think you're right. I think you've just raised a really important point about knowing when to fight or challenge or push and when not to. And what I would say to you is, as a summary sentence for everybody, in the first 4 months, it's absolutely not about fighting. I mean, we provide a nurture plan to our families, and it's basically almost anti-sleep training in the sense that it says things that you wouldn't perhaps link to coming from a sleep consultant, such as make sure you wear pajamas for the first few visits so that you are giving the clear sign that you are a patient. You've just had something happen. Like, yes, you know, you don't have to do what I did and host for 21 people and, you know, bake thing, like ridiculous thing. But the point is, so I'd say the first 4 months is the time not to challenge, not to go against the grain, to go with the flow. But I would also say, and I think it's really important that people know this, is that whilst you don't ever have to work on sleep, I would urge people not to if they don't want to. If it doesn't matter how you get sleep, if co-sleeping safely gives you brilliant sleep, I wouldn't for one moment suggest you change it if you love it and you feel connected and you're happy. But what I would also say is that when sleep does feel like a massive struggle beyond the 5 to 8 month mark, and it's really quite difficult, and you've passed through the 4 month sleep regression, which by the way is for the 5 month mark, it's done. So when we hear families at 8 months, 9 months, oh, nothing's been the same since then, it's not that anymore, it's something else. But I would say when you get to the 5+ month mark, it is absolutely okay, and in fact highly recommended from a mother of 4 children's point of view, that you do not have to settle with broken sleep beyond that mark. So from the half year onwards, if you want to, your baby is absolutely capable of doing 10 to 12 solid hours with 1 or 2 night feeds, whatever you wish to keep it, it's up to you. So I would say don't push when you're in that 4 month sleep regression, knowing that, and perhaps it will help you not to push, to know that by the 5+ month mark, much greater chunks of sleep are possible, and probably I could be argumentative and say essential for development, happiness, and health.
I think that knowing that there's light at the end, like we hear this phrase, don't we, all the time, like it's just a phase, it's just a phase. But when you're in your week 2 postpartum, it feels like this is your life forever. Like it's never going to get better. So it's so good to know that it is just a phase. One of the things you mentioned there, Eve, that we have to delve into, because I remember this with my first, when I was in that place of I have no idea about sleep, like other than I'm now really tired and have no idea what we're doing. And so good old Google had me at 2 a.m. And I feel like every stage, there was a regression. There was a sleep regression for every single month of his life, I am sure, according to Google. And you mentioned the 4-month sleep regression. Talk to us about what this sleep regression thing is, because I feel like that has to be such a massive misconception out there.
Jem is your woman for this, the nurse. She just knows this inside out.
I love talking about regressions because
this episode is sponsored by Apta Club. If you're pregnant or navigating life with a new baby, you'll know just how much information is out there and how difficult it can be to know what is evidence-based. That's why I wanted to tell you about Actor Club. They have a wide range of free educational resources and blogs covering pregnancy, birth, recovery, and early parenting, all designed to help you feel more informed and confident as you make decisions for you and your family. Whether you're wondering what to expect during labour, exploring your birth options, or preparing for those first few weeks with you and your little baby, having trusted, evidence-based information can make all the difference. And one feature I think many parents will find particularly helpful is the Actor Club Care Line, the opportunity to speak with regulated midwives and nutritionists who can provide general information and support when questions come up along the way. Every family's journey is unique, and it's important that you have access to balanced, evidence-based information to make informed decisions that are right for you and your family. For now, back to today's episode.
And I love, as a pediatrician, like you said, I love all the science behind sleep, and I'm a bit of a sleep geek. But essentially, the 4-month sleep regression, we know it is a very real regression biologically. And the reason, in a really quick summary, is that babies aren't born with melatonin. They get it from your breast milk and from contact. And that's why they don't know the difference between day and night. They don't have their circadian rhythm, which are literally genes. So they don't have what I call the sleep architecture to be capable of really solid sleep until they've gone through the 4-month sleep regression. So it's a progression biologically, but it causes quite a significant regression in sleep. And what that looks like is at week 12, when babies are starting to produce melatonin, they can do some lovely stints of sleep when you're like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And then hello, 16 weeks. Let's go in there and mix it all up and just wreak some havoc and cause this regression. So biologically, it's a very real regression. It's actually the only regression that we know biologically to be a real one. Sleep can, of course, regress beyond the 4-month mark, and it does because of so many reasons, object permanence in terms of emotional separation anxiety, teething, illness, house moves, holidays, emotional transitions. For us as parents, impacts our babies because we're so intricately linked. So sleep regresses, of course, beyond the 4-month mark. But what I call toxic positivity, and I talk about this quite a lot on our page, is that we can essentially, it's like this badge of honor, we can essentially Google, exactly as you said, Pip, a regression. The other day, I think I heard the 34-month regression. I had to work out, hang on, is your baby 2 or 3? And when, what's going on? So you can essentially Google 7, 8, 9, 20, 32-month regression, and you will find a reason for sleep regressing. Why that is dangerous and kind of not productive is because you then just accept that sleep has just regressed because it's a regression. You don't look at what's underneath it. So what we do at Calm and Bright is we look at, okay, yes, sleep regressed. That's really hard. What's going on? Is there something emotional? Is there something physical? Are nap needs changing? What can we do to unpick this? So yes, of course, sleep regresses, absolutely. But there is no real regression beyond month 4, biologically anyway.
Yeah, and I think the other important thing to say there, Jem, is that we understand why parents do this, right? When you are getting broken sleep, you feel completely out of control. And it's the same with anything, whatever problem you have. So you seek information, okay, because labels and reasons give us a semblance of control, so they can feel comforting. However, what I would say to people is, to exhausted parents is, if your child has normally slept well beyond the beginning part, right, and you are 2 weeks into some difficulty, you absolutely have something to work on, but they're a good sleeper. What we can't blame for months and years of bad sleep are perpetual regressions. Regressions last between a week and 2 at tops, maybe a couple of days. Same as teething. They've been teething for 4 months. No, they haven't been teething for 4 months. They might have been, don't get me wrong, Jem had a beaster of a teether, Louis, her second, but that's different. But 3 to 5 days per tooth. So unless you have, them in complete succession, then actually it doesn't last for weeks or months. So I would say to you that if your baby is normally a good sleeper and you've got something going on, yes, it is some sort of regression. If you always had broken sleep, it's nothing to do with regressions. It's almost always how they get to and back to sleep. That's it. And obviously the physical elements, but to be honest, 80% of the time plus, it's more how they settle to sleep.
And I think what's so interesting listening to you guys talk, and what I just see is this like gaping void really for families, is just understanding baby sleep because it is so different to us. And I feel like I learnt that the really hard way, like with our
Mm,
first. And it
mm.
took us to like breaking point with sleep to then think like this just can't be how
Yeah.
this is. And I think I'm so passionate about evidence-based information and women
Mm,
understanding their bodies. And I just think there's this
mm.
big void in then understanding your baby at like food and sleep. That is the
Yeah.
main thing, isn't it? In that initial newborn period, that is what they
Yeah.
do. They eat, sleep, poo. That's these three
Yeah.
pillars. So I think
Yeah.
actually for families to understand in that fourth trimester, this is what's safe. This is what we should expect. And I think if we can really get ahead of that curve so that it's not that like, oh my goodness, shock, whilst you've got
Yeah.
postnatal hormones, sore cracked nipples, a bleeding vagina, a wound that you're trying to keep clean and dry, like
Yeah.
all of that chaos, just knowing what to expect so that
Yeah.
hopefully we can keep some of that confidence in
Yeah.
ourselves that
That's
actually we're
it.
not doing these bad habits. We can rock them, we can cuddle them, we can
Yeah.
feed them. And then we can
Absolutely.
get to a place where actually maybe we recognize it's not working for us and we can
Yeah.
then have support that works for us as a
Yeah.
family. And I think
That's it.
we're such a strange new generation maybe of women in that our life postpartum is so different in terms of the pressures, the careers, the juggles, the locations of
Yeah.
families. We're really different in that. But the advice we're still getting because there's nothing else
Yeah.
is often from the generation before us where the
Yeah.
world was completely different. Like
A
I
hundred
remember my
percent.
mother-in-law saying, "Why is he on his back? Put him on his front." And I'm
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
You're
we're totally
like, no,
different
that's not
now.
safe.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's wildly different, and
Yeah.
parents are just they're just
Mm.
left floundering, aren't they,
Yeah.
in that initial period, which is why I love the fact that, you know, we talk about that biology, understanding your baby, and I
Mm.
know that's something you guys are so passionate about, and I just think that that empowerment for families is so,
Yeah.
so important.
I think
It's
you're
just
right. I think the
how.
experience of the beginning months would be completely different if
Mm.
Yeah,
knew, don't
Yeah.
worry, it's going to be
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
so true. If
yeah.
people just knew, and even like when we're preparing for our baby show talks or going on podcasts, I was like, how do you prepare parents that haven't experienced sleep deprivation, that haven't experienced the early weeks?
Mm,
How do you prepare them? Because the education just isn't there. It's not there in modern day. And I'm an NHS nurse of nearly 20 years. It's not there. And I think
mm,
it probably I've noticed in the my eldest is 15, my youngest is 4. In that time, I've noticed the kind of the support over the years, not through the health visitor's fault or the NHS's fault, but just a stretched service. And the education just isn't there. So
yeah,
parents really don't know what to expect. And exactly as you said, Pip, generationally, we're being handed this information of how we were parented. And lots of that is kind of, I always talk to our program members about, oh, it's a bit like Chinese whispers, and
yeah.
information gets distorted, and also how we perceive information as individuals. Of course, on a human level, we would interpret that as we wanted to as well. So it's just about having that real evidence base, but also we encourage parents all the time to tune into their intuition,
Yeah.
the tuition literally inside of them about what feels right and good for them, because that is such an important part of navigating the early months as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we understood the normality and like you were saying there, Eve, like take that pressure off, it's all
Mm,
okay, it's all normal, it's all biologically normal in that fourth
mm,
trimester, it would allow us to talk more openly as women. Because I remember
mm.
with my first, you'd go to classes and people would be like, one of the first questions is like, what is they sleeping like? Because we're
Yeah,
automatically trying to like put ourselves on this bar of judgment
yeah,
as to whether this is
yeah,
normal, because frankly, none of us have got a clue.
That's
yeah,
And
true.
so
If you
it's
knew,
then
you
we're
wouldn't
then
have
not
to
open, are
ask.
we?
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
so true. And then you can jump straight to the next step of it's hard, isn't it? What could I help you with? Or, anything. I was
mm,
listening to a podcast the other day, which was fantastic about how this particular celebrity had turned up at her friend's house, knowing that she was going to be exhausted in the fourth trimester,
Mm.
and turned up as a bunch of cleaners, and they'd cleaned the house and put on a load of laundry and done all of that stuff. And I think that if we knew that it would be like that, and even people who weren't yet
mm,
mothers yet, or your friends had that knowledge, again,
Yeah.
knowledge is power. I do think we could just then skip straight to this next part of not how are they sleeping, but the broken sleep is really hard, isn't it? What can I do? So that
yeah,
would change many mothers'
yeah.
Mm.
experience of motherhood, and
It
therefore
really
dads,
would. It really
etc.
would. I loved hearing you say that, Eve. And I think also, again, I literally was talking about this in a reel yesterday that I posted, but parents come to us asking us about awake windows or early wakes or night wakes. But what they're really coming to us saying is, I'm exhausted. I'm not enjoying this. Why am I crying every day? Why do I feel disconnected from my partner? So much of what we do is supporting parents, because if you can support parents, it's you, the parents, that are raising your little people. So we have to look at your well-being. Yes, I'm a pediatric nurse, and I thought when I started my child health diploma that I would be, you know, looking after babies and nursing babies, which of course I did, but I didn't realize how much I was holding parents through grief
Yeah.
and loss and health, really difficult health things. It's literally 50-50. And it's exactly
Yeah.
the same at Calm and Bright. Yes, we know a lot about babies and infant biology, but we also know how to hold parents,
Mm.
you know?
That's so important, Jem, because I think so much, and I know this is why we could talk for hours because we're really passionate in our, different areas of expertise
Mm,
about how there is just no one size fits all or
mm,
black and white to this experience that's so human and important,
mm,
and that's one of our key values. And I talk about this all the time with regards
mm,
to birth experience and pregnancy, but I know that aligns with you guys with sleep, and I think that's really important as well because no one journey is going to be the same. I know we did sleep so
mm,
differently with our first and second, partly because, as I said, we were clueless with our first,
mm.
but then our second was, quite poorly. And so for
Yeah.
me, co-sleeping, which we never did the first time, became
Mm,
essential for our
of
well-being as a
course.
family. And it was honestly just the biggest lifeline, even down to the
Yeah.
fact, we didn't use a soother for our first and our
Yeah.
second. My goodness, I don't think I'd still be on
Give
this
him the...
planet without the soother. So,
Exactly.
I think knowing that you don't have to do it like great Aunt
Mm,
Jude down the road or like your best mate or like your friends
mm,
did because your child is biologically different. You're
mm,
different. And I think that understanding your instincts is so
mm.
important, but then knowing that there isn't one size fits all and it's
Yeah.
okay to do things in a different speed or a different time or in a different way. And I think, again, that really feeds into that important message that you started with today of there isn't such thing as bad habits in that
Yeah.
fourth trimester. Doing what works for
Yeah.
you, what soothes and comforts your baby is
Yeah.
perfect. And that's going to be
Yeah.
different for everybody.
It
Yeah.
is. I think it's important to state that, Pip. Some people may be listening to this and thinking, well, because I remember once I said to her mum, you can co-sleep and contact nap to your heart's content. She went, well, honestly, my heart isn't content when I'm doing it
Yeah.
because I'm all touched out.
Mm,
If I'm honest, I'm really resentful. I'm spilling out with rage
mm.
and I'm not loving it. So I need you to tell me how to get that independence. And I said, look, that will come in time when your baby's ready, when it's the right time biologically. For now, we'll just need to find ways that yes, we can do contact sleep, but maybe a carrier so it's not just your hands are free. At least like
Yes.
there are ways, but I think it's important so that nobody feels alienated, that not everybody loves the beginning
Mm.
bits. I think that's important to say, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we'd be lying if anyone said they loved every
Oh,
single part
Gosh,
of any
no.
of this journey. My goodness, like you can love your baby deeply, but also be like,
Yeah.
please, can I just have 10 minutes to myself? Like,
100%. I describe motherhood like another podcast that we did with G Fletcher. We had to describe motherhood in 3 words. And I was like, it is beautiful and brutal, and the two can coexist
yes.
Within an hour of the same.
within an
Yeah.
hour, within 10 minutes of the same day, right? And that depends on
Absolutely.
us and how we are, and whether we've had a good sleep or whether we've had a nice bit of time with our partner or gone for a run or whatever we've done.
Mm.
It's so beautiful parenting, but it's really brutal at times, and
Oh,
it's really hard.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think social media can make it seem like everybody's baby is suddenly sleeping through the
Mm,
night or independently in their cot. And it feeds into these kind of
mm.
unrealistic expectations that without knowledge, we don't know to challenge. We assume that that's the norm and we're then somehow falling short or failing at
Yeah,
that.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So important that it doesn't matter how you do it, if it works for you. That is the
Mm.
single biggest thing. And that might be independent sleep from earlier than someone else. Although
Yeah.
we don't work, with that beyond the 6 month mark anyway. We just lay down gently foundations for
Yeah.
good sleep. But for others, it might be, I co-slept with my now nearly 13-year-old from the ages of 4 to 9 because that
Mm.
worked for me until it didn't. And then when
Yeah.
it didn't, I had an awful lot of work to do. And I was fully aware that it was not my fault, but that I had taught her that she needed me and that she in fact didn't. And I was at the point, I don't mind sharing, where
Mm.
I was taking 2 hours to put her to bed because she would not let me leave her side. We were going through a separation with her, with my four children's dad.
Mm.
And it had been in my benefit for her to be in my bed. So I then had the responsibility to undo it and to teach her that she could do it herself and that she
Yeah.
didn't need a particular pillow, otherwise the world would end. And, there was some anxiety and some OCD, I think, there. And that was probably because looking back, she was in a situation that was out of her control.
Yeah.
But my point is, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's what works for you. What we would say is the one single important thing is to get sleep. That is a
Yes.
non-negotiable beyond the 4 month trimester. But even from with my third, Senna, who I just mentioned, I was breastfeeding throughout. I was cluster feeding till about 9. I would go to bed. My husband would do the next feed about 3 hours later, 2 hours later. So from 3 weeks, I was getting 6 hours straight. And I can tell you now
Mm.
that that experience was
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
you gave her a bottle of express milk. I remember. Yeah,
It was
yeah, I
formula in
remember.
the end. So I
Yeah.
started with my milk, but I didn't have enough because I had
Mm,
4 kids under the age of 6, but
mm.
at that point, well, she was my third, so 3 under the age of 5. So I ended up giving a goat's milk formula bottle because it was gentler on the digestive system. And yeah, but then she would have a expressed as well, and neither of them did any better than the other. So yeah,
Yeah.
either way, it meant I
Yeah.
wasn't doing one of the feeds every 3 hours, and that was
Yeah.
the totally different experience of motherhood was.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
bounced back. I hate that expression, but I
Such a
got
good
like
trick.
me so much quicker.
Mm.
Mm.
But there
And
is
it's
even
so,
hope from the beginning, Pip. You can get
Yeah.
yeah.
little blocks.
And I think it's, again, it comes down to, unless you know what those options are,
Mm.
it's impossible. Like we have no idea,
Mm.
do we? Like, so I think it's such an important conversation.
Yeah.
Guys, quick fire
Yeah.
question round. Are you ready?
Yes.
Right, let's go.
Down.
Um, First one for Eve.
Mhm.
Biggest myth about newborn sleep.
That you can make it bad by doing too much comfort and affection. You
Oh, that's
can
such a
spoil
take-home
a
message, isn't
baby.
it? So important. Jem, contact naps, normal or a problem?
Normal. Oh, I still like a contact nap now with my 4-year-old if she ever naps.
I feel like you crave it now, don't you?
I'm
You just
like, come
crave it. Oh,
give me
so
some
nice.
attention.
When it was really hot, my 4-year-old asked me to lie on his bed with him, which, quite frankly, given that all of the fans of the universe were in
Oh
in
my
the boys' rooms, I was well
gosh.
up for, which he never asks me to do. And I was like, oh, this is really lovely. He's like, can you
So
hold my hand? I
lovely.
was like, yes,
Oh,
absolutely,
contact
with
naps
the
are a
fans on me.
godsend. They are just a godsend. And actually, what we do within the program is we bring contact naps back after teaching, which is one of my favorite things to do. If
Mm,
parents want to, one sleeper solid and babies are going 11 hours overnight, and we want to bring contact
yeah.
naps in if that's the age of the baby, we do with great success.
And then you really enjoy it because it's not that, like,
Yeah, you don't
you
have
just
to.
savor
Yeah,
it, absolutely, because you're actually
exactly.
rested yourself.
Yeah.
Eve, one thing parents worry about that they don't need to.
That they will always be sleep deprived. The news flash for
Mm.
me is that you only have to struggle with sleep as long as you want to, beyond the
Mhm.
6 month mark.
Yeah.
I love that. There's light at the end.
Huge.
Light.
Jem, what's more important, routines or responsiveness?
Responsiveness all the time. And routine is, we don't have one set time in our plans. It's your routine has got to serve you. So responsiveness all day long.
Mm. I feel like I remember you guys saying to me, watch your baby, not the clock.
Yep, that
Yes.
was me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was like, that's all of these
Yeah.
things that are staying with me 5 years
Yeah.
later.
I
lovely.
love that you
Uh,
remember them all,
I
Pip.
remember,
That's
I just
oh,
amazing.
never understood how a nap could be at a certain time when they might have woken at 6 or 8 a.m.
yeah,
Like, could it? I never got that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so no, all the way is about listening to you. To be honest, our babies and children know exactly how to sleep. They just need us to
Yeah.
listen to when and how, and that's what we do. It's all baby led, really.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Um, Eve, how many naps does a newborn baby need?
Gosh, it could be unlimited amounts. So it really
Mm,
depends how long they sleep, but little tiny naps of 8 to 20 minutes, 40 minutes is completely normal. And in that case, there might be
Mm,
8 of those in a day.
mm,
It doesn't matter. And if they're doing an hour and a half, which would be manner of heaven, then it would be less. It would be 4 or 5. So it doesn't matter. They can
yeah,
sleep when they want to sleep, and that's fine. And they're usually tired. So if you're wondering, is it nappy? Is it this? It's usually
yes.
tiredness.
I feel like newborns don't do much other than sleep,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Like
just
Just
they
sleep.
feed and poo and then sleep.
45-minute nap gap
Yeah.
first
45
week.
minutes.
And in that
Mm,
time, there's a feed and a change. So you go,
yeah.
Yeah.
it's basically 16 hours a day is what they sleep at the beginning,
Yeah.
roughly.
Do you know what? I love that bit though. I love the fact that you can just do life and they just come along for the ride
Yeah.
because they don't need anything other than sleep.
Oh, I love that.
Jem, your favorite way to help an overtired baby settle?
My favorite way is to say to mums, just take some deep breaths. You've got this. I know it's really hard when you're just feeling touched out and your boobs are leaking, but bring your baby close. If you need to go outside and have some fresh air or put them in the sling and go for a walk, keep them close because sometimes you feel like that's the opposite to what they need. If you're blaming yourself, oh, they're not sleeping well because of me, you actually just need each other and you've got all of the answers with each other. Listen to each other and just hug that baby.
Oh, Jem, I just love your like the beautiful ways you describe it. It's so,
Yeah,
so
so
lovely.
nurturing.
Oh, so reassuring. I feel like it takes me back to the newborn days when we were just voice noting desperation. And I'm sure Jem woke up every morning to me like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And then she'd just send this soothing message. And I'd be like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
it's all fixed. Just like that. It's all fixed
Oh,
by Jem's
bless
voice.
Yeah,
you.
the amount of
That's
people that
so.
say in the inbox, Jem, you know that you need to do like a meditation from.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, one more each because I could keep going with you guys all day with your knowledge. One thing you would love every new parent to know about sleep, Eve.
Ah, this is easy. That you do not have to choose between a well-rested and a well-attached baby.
Mm,
You do not have to be neglectful or whatever to get sleep. In fact, you're going to be way more playful, creative, calm, kind, connected, emotionally available, and less depressed, the studies show,
yeah,
if you are rested. So don't choose. In fact, it's attachment enhancing when you have a
Mm.
baby sleeping.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Jem, finish us off. What is one thing you wish someone had told you about newborn sleep?
That it's not something you can get wrong, that sleep is not a measure of your worth as a parent. It's not something you can pass or fail, and there's not one way to do sleep. So just
Mm.
know you can't get this wrong, no matter what you're hearing or telling yourself. You've 100% got this.
Oh, guys, honestly, thank you so much. Your words of wisdom, I hope, will be imprinted in our listeners' brains as much as they have been mine in the newborn stages. So, for anyone listening who thinks I need more of that supportive, compassionate knowledge around sleep, Gem and Eve make up Calm and Bright Sleep Support, and you can find all of their details in the episode description. Thank you so much. You're
You
utter
take
angels.
care. Lots of
Thank you for
love.
having us.
Bye bye.
Bye.